Good morning, St. Kitts and Nevis, and welcome to The Edge for Wednesday, May 15th, 2024. I'm Devonne, Cornelius, and thank you so much for joining me on the program for today. In studio with me are members of the Financial Education and Saving Task Force here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have Dr. Marcus Nutter, Cabinet Secretary, and he is also the chairman of that task force, as well as Ms. Davinia Tomlinson, investment management expert and CEO of Rosewood Advisory Services. She's also a member of the Financial Education and Savings Program Task Force. And the conversation today will be centered around that task force and how far we are in terms of rolling out the Financial Education and Savings Program, the key features, the purpose, the benefits of the program, and the implementation process, and the other organizations and or agencies that the government is working with to ensure that this program is a success. Good morning, Dr. Nutter, Davinia. How are you guys doing?
I'm well, thank you for having us.
Awesome. So let's get right into the meat of the matter. We're talking about the Financial Education and Savings Program. In a nutshell, what is the program about? Dr. Nutter?
Yeah, well, again, thanks for having us, and good morning, I guess good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the globe. Let me start by saying that the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, announced this initiative during his budget address. I believe it was December 13th of 2023 when he gave his budget address at the start of the budget debate for 2024. And, you know, I always tell people when the Prime Minister speaks, once he says it, you know, we have to ensure it comes to fruition, at least from my end. And we began working that same month and reaching out to persons who could make up the task force that we have in place today. And the initiative that the Prime Minister announced was that he wanted to empower our young people and empower them financially and empower them to the point where they are able to build on their finances. So it was about building generational wealth and creating and building on generational wealth. So the initiative in a nutshell is that each young citizen between the ages of 5 and 18 would be given $1,000, and the $1,000 would be in this particular frame. $500 in cash would go towards a savings account at our indigenous bank, which is the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank, and that will be either held in trust. Most of the young persons would not be able to open an account, so a parent or guardian hold it in trust for them, and it cannot be touched at all until they exit the program, right? And we can get to that a little bit later. The other $500 of that $1,000 would be embedded in shares for those individuals, again, using the two entities we would want to start out with, two government-owned entities, which is the National Bank, as well as the cable, which is in the process of divesting its shares. Government owns 99% or so of the cable right now, so they'll be divesting the shares so that shares can be allocated accordingly to the recipients. And so the task force started with that general premise. Of course, as you can see, that's a very simplistic way of dealing with it, and Davinia, of course, being a financial expert, I lean on her and the other members heavily for guidance in that way in terms of shares, because I don't know if persons in the general public have ever seen. I don't think it has been done in St. Kitts and Nevis where young persons, unless their parents do it for them, afforded the opportunity to learn about investments, you know, and to actually own shares in a publicly traded company. And so the task force, so those are two prongs, right? The savings and also the investment in shares.
Yes.
The third prong is really the financial education. So the Prime Minister doesn't intend to just give the students money and just say, hey, you know, go on your way. But the premise and the root of it is educating them financially, learning development skills, learning financial literacy, learning about the market, stock markets and so on, and how do you build on that. So at the end, I'm sure, and we're hoping 99% of the individuals would not just take whatever money they have at the time, with the interest gained, etc., dividends earned, and go away with it. And even if they do that, we would want them to be able to have that knowledge to reinvest or to seek other, opportunities to build on the wealth. So that's it in a big nutshell.
So the name of the program says Financial Education
Yes.
and Savings Program. So I want to focus on the education part of it.
Sure.
And as you rightly mentioned, if you're going to give people money, you're going to have to teach them how to manage that money. And in this case, you're talking about people who are not yet adults.
Correct.
And so ensuring that they have a good understanding of managing money and investments and all of that must form part of the conversation. How exactly would that work in terms of rolling out the education aspect of it, getting it into our schools or different programs? How is that going to work?
Okay, you want me to take that one?
Yes.
Yes. So we have several subcommittees within the task force, and one of them deals specifically with financial education. And I pause here to also say that this initiative is fully endorsed by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. From the top, Governor Timothy Antoine is heavily behind this program. Him and the Prime Minister have had extensive discussions about this. And the ECCB actually has a financial literacy, financial education and empowerment program already developed. And so we have a representative there, Sybil Welsh, who has been doing this for many years through the ECCB and actually developed their program. So she is part of the task force. She is driving this subcommittee that is dealing with the financial education. And I can tell you that the curriculum has already been developed and that we have already done some tests with some of the teachers. Done some test runs with them, and they've really taken to it. Of course, we can refine as we go along and so on, but that aspect of it is pretty much done. We would still want to do some more work and incorporate other teachers and so on. But that is heavily being driven with the support and resources of the ECCB. So we are well on the way with that, and we'll probably use from now and over the summer. That's the break for teachers, but we will try to get in as much as we can and work with them to see how we can start to roll that out. How we roll it out, I'm not sure yet. We'll probably do it in some phases, starting with some at some level. I don't know, high school, primary school. The subcommittee will guide the task force on that. But we will really endeavor to start at least rolling it out in some grades at the start of the school year in September.
And is there a time frame for this project? Would you launch it today and end it 6 months later, or would it be continuous?
Okay, so very good question. Now, the premise is that the age group is 5 to 18 years of age, and we can appreciate that across that spectrum, because of the age differences, there will be various needs, right? And we'll have to do some learning strategies that are tailored towards younger persons than the teens and more of the young adults and so on. So, needless to say, we want persons to be on the program for an appropriate amount of time. Now, if you're currently, let's say, 16 years of age, and the program says you go from 5 to 18, then the task force, our view right now is that spending a year or two within the program is not enough. It is not enough for the education aspect. It is not enough as well from the investment and shares, because you wouldn't get enough interest and dividends. Even the savings account would not garner enough at that time. So we are looking at some tiers in terms of the time frames. I mean, if you're 5 years old, you get a good full stretch on the program. But if, like I said, if you're 16, 17, we may have to tweak that slightly and allow you to stay on the program a little longer, not till you're 30 or something like that, but a little longer so you can gain that interest, gain the dividends from the shares, and also gain that empowerment, the education, the literacy aspect of it. So we will roll out exactly time frames once we tie those down a little bit.
Speaking about investments, and I'm not sure, Devonne, can you speak on this in terms of the various topics that will be covered for the financial education? I see that we have, as part of the key features, dividend reinvestment. There's some people that they don't have a clear understanding of investments and stock exchange and all of these things. How would that work, and how would you get the information to that group 5 to 18 and their parents and guardians alike?
Right. It's a good question, and I'm glad that you mentioned about the parents and guardians, because I think as part of the financial education programme, we will be doing some quite careful segmentation around who are the different groups, the different stakeholder groups that will be involved. So of course the children are at the centre of this programme, but of course their parents, we need to make sure their parents and guardians are equally up to speed so that they can pour into children. There have been a number of studies that point to the fact that children are effectively learning their earliest money habits by the age of 5, by the age of 7, and so on that basis they are already absorbing by osmosis from the elders around them behaviours around money and cultivating their own relationship with money that effectively carries them forward through into adulthood. So what we are trying to do through the programme, through this kind of two-pronged approach, is to provide the education that equips them with the knowledge, the tools and the mindset to make good and positive decisions, and then to provide the catalyst in the form of cash and the investments to help them to build and start their journey to wealth creation. With regard to the investment aspect in particular, what we recognise is that, of course, there are different tiers in terms of the age groups, as Dr. Natta has said. So we've got from 5 to 18. The kind of programme you would put together for a 5-year-old in terms of teaching them about diversification, for example, a very important principle of investment, is slightly different than you would when you're talking to teenagers, for example. Right. But there are some very clever devices that you can use. For example, if you were talking to 5 and 6-year-olds about, why is diversification so important? What do we mean by diversification? And you might have a basket of fruits, and you might say, if you put one apple in a basket, does that look good, or do you want to have an apple and a banana and a mango in the basket? Now suddenly what you've done is to give yourself some options, and in so doing you're also introducing the concept of risk. How can you mitigate risk? How can you make sure that you are not putting everything into one basket, but you've got multiple baskets with different fruits in? So there are some really visual ways that you can engage them. I think digital engagement will also be particularly key, especially as these young people get older. Everybody's got their own device, lots of young people have their own smartphones, tablets, etc. And we want to make sure that we can meet people where they are. So, whilst we know that not everybody's going to have a smart device, the vast majority of young people will, but we want there to be some gamification involved in how we educate and meet these young people, because I know from my own perspective as someone that's got 20 years experience working in investment management, I talk about pensions, I talk about portfolio management to people all the time. It's boring, right? It can feel dry to adults, and so how can we get young people, who've got really fertile minds right now, we want to plant the seeds of good financial management early, and to do so in a way that is engaging for them as well. So there are a number of different tactics that we'll be deploying in that realm.
Thank you so much for that. It is 15 minutes past the 11 o'clock hour, so we'll take a break to give a shout out to our sponsors, and when we come back we'll continue the program here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. Let's take this break and we'll be right back.
You tired of Wi-Fi dead zones in your home? The Cable has the ultimate solution with our whole home Wi-Fi coverage. Say goodbye to frustrating signal drops and hello to seamless connectivity in every corner of your home. No more
Mom, my tablet's not working in my bedroom. My game is freezing, Daddy.
Or WhatsApp calls dropping as you walk around the house. So many people struggle with dead zones and restricted Wi-Fi, and the Cable has the answer. Enjoy full blanket increased Wi-Fi coverage with installation in 48 hours or less. Whole home Wi-Fi coverage is here. Get the whole family connected today. Come in or call the Cable at 465-2588 to get your whole home Wi-Fi boost installed. The Cable, always giving you more. Terms and conditions apply.
Join us on ZIZ TV for Youth Lounge with Skanito, a talk show on vital topics such as tourism, entrepreneurship, education, religion, sex education, and mental health. featuring experts from St. Kitts and Nevis and the Caribbean region. Tune in live on the first and third Wednesday of every month at 8:30 p.m. on ZIZ TV.
Join us every Wednesday for In Focus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. In Focus, your government, your business.
Get ready, St. Kitts and Nevis, for the first annual Jesus in the City Parade and Festival on Saturday, May 18th, 2024 at the Warner Park Stadium. Celebrate love for God and love for people throughout the city with festive floats, live gospel bands, choirs, costumes, banners, and paraders filling the streets of downtown Bastille with praise and worship. The opening festivities kick off at 11 a.m. with the parade leaving Warner Park Stadium at 12 noon, moving along city streets and returning to the stadium for a grand gospel concert celebration. Enjoy music featuring special international guest artists, local bands, food and festivities for the whole family. Come lift up the name of Jesus in the city on Saturday, May 18th, 2024. To register your church, enter a float, secure a vendor booth, or to become a sponsor, visit jesusinthecity.com or call 662-8911.
Jesus in the city, hands in the air.
Power Talk. Power Talk is Skellig's radio program aired the first and third Wednesday of every month. Tune in at 9:30 a.m. on ZIZ Radio for the latest information on what's happening at Skellig. Learn more about doing business with Skellig and the services that they offer. Power Talk, powered by Skellig.
From the heart of ZIZ Radio comes a political talk show like no other. The Edge, with host Devonne Cornelius giving you his take on the biggest stories happening in governance today. Got something to say? Let's hear it. Give us a call at 869-465-2555, Monday to Friday from 11 a.m. to 12 noon. One solid hour of in-depth analysis of the machinery that makes our country tick. The Edge, cutting into the matters at hand.
Hello and welcome back to The Edge on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. I'm Devonne Cornelius. If you're just tuning in studio with me today is Dr. Marcus Natter, Cabinet Secretary and Chair of the Financial Education and Savings Program Task Force, as well as Davinia Tomlinson, Investment Management Expert and CEO of Rosewood Advisory Services. And she's also a member of the task force. And today they're here to provide information on the Financial Education and Savings Program in terms of the key features, the benefits, the purpose, and all that you need to know. Later on in the program, we will open the phone lines for you to pose your questions, and Dr. Natter and Davinia, of course, will be able to answer those questions. I'm confident. So let's get back into the conversation. Dividend reinvestments, in terms of giving our listeners a better understanding of the dividend investment and how exactly it is going to work. As you were mentioning off air, there were some people who wanted to know if they can choose where they want to make the investment. Is that an option? Tell us.
So I suppose taking those questions in reverse then, and starting with the companies into which we will be acquiring stakes on behalf of the children who are the ultimate beneficiaries.
Yes.
And I think that's important to state that the purpose of this programme is really to provide economic empowerment for the next generation and generations to come, and to start to plant the seeds, establish that financial foundation and a mindset of wealth creation in the minds of young people. So the parents and guardians play a very critical role in helping those young people to absorb what they're learning through the financial education program, to remind them, you know, this is why we're doing this, this is, you know, your money, you know, you'll be able to get updates on the progress that your money is making over time, to remind them why we are taking such a long-term view in terms of the investment horizon. As Dr. Natta said, you know, for those young people that are fortunate enough to join at the age of 5, they don't exit the program until they are 18. And, you know, one of the, principles of investment is about taking a long-term view, recognising it's one of the best ways to mitigate risk, to reduce your risk over the long term, but also give your money, your capital, an opportunity to grow. So I think that's really important. With regards to the investments that we will be, the companies that we will be investing into, we have specifically selected the Cable and National Bank on the basis that they are primarily government-backed entities, and what we want is for the young people to have a stake in the companies in which they effectively to feel that they have a stake in the nation's wealth through some of the largest companies that operate and that are backed by the government. What we don't want to have is a situation in which we create operational chaos, because that could also happen by inviting parents and guardians to make independent decisions as to which companies they want to invest into on behalf of the young people. You could easily see a scenario in which one parent makes a decision as to investing in one company, another parent chooses a different company. The returns profile in terms of the outcome at the end of the programme look different. So, for example, child A has got a much better return for their shares than child B. And so what that creates is a kind of a feeling of disappointment. What we want is democratisation and a completely egalitarian approach whereby all children have the same stake. And on that basis, we are not inviting people to be able to acquire additional shares through the programme. They'll be allocated the shares at the point of entry, and those shares will grow over time. Any dividends, so for those people that are listening that are unfamiliar with the principle of dividends, if you own a stake in a company, obviously, and you've got a share, so that's effectively where that language comes from, that is your share in the company.
Okay.
On that basis, you share in the success or effectively the failure, the losses of that company. So if the company performs well, for example, if you were a cable customer and you were also a cable shareholder, you'll be able to feel like, oh, you know, the cable's doing really well. I've been to the annual general meeting, I've looked at the annual reports, the performance of the company looks really good, I feel positive about it. Again, it's cultivating a mindset of investment, of ownership. Similarly, or conversely, if the cable underperforms, you can start to feel, again, you know, what can we do? I want to go to the annual general meeting and hold the management team to account and ask them questions about how they are leading that company. So when the company performs well, meets all of its targets, typically what they will do is to provide a share of those profits to investors without them having to sell their stake. And that is otherwise known as a dividend. So you might still own a stake. Let's say you've got 10 shares in the cable, and they will say, right, we're going to pay you $1 dividend for each of those 10 shares. So now you've got $10 in dividends, but you still own your shares. That's effectively what we mean by dividends. Over the course of the programme, any dividends that the company might announce that they are paying out to shareholders, which will include the children in the programme, as well as anybody else that owns shares in these institutions, we will automatically reinvest those dividends on their behalf. So ordinarily, you might have those dividends paid out to you. So for example, I've got shares in the UK. They will announce, you know, we're going to pay a dividend on an annual basis of 5%, for example. And I can decide that I want those dividends paid out to me in cash. It'll go into my bank account. I'll decide what I want to do with them. However, if I decide that I want to buy new shares, then I can give that option to the investment manager, and the investment manager will automatically buy new shares on my behalf. What we are saying with this programme is that at the heart of it, it is about economic empowerment, it is about wealth creation. And if you think about compounding and compound interest, which is another one of the principles that will be taught through the financial education programme, it's one of the best ways to turbocharge and accelerate the value of your investment over a long-term period. And automatically reinvesting those dividends means that your returns will be compounded over time. So by compound, effectively what I'm meaning is that you're building one block on top of the other all the time. If you think about it as building blocks, when you're compounding, that's what you're doing, but you are doing it at pace versus you having to make a manual decision. Let's say you, Devonne, you receive a dividend and you have to, and it's paid out into your bank account, and now you have to decide do I want to buy some more shares, or do I want to buy that pair of shoes that I had my eye on, or do I want to take that vacay? What we are not trying to do is infantilize anybody through the program. Empowerment is very much important here, but we also want to eliminate friction. And when I say eliminate friction, I want to take that decision away so that you're not having to think, I did plan to buy those shares, but now it's just sitting in my bank account, right? Ultimately, the children are the beneficiaries. Children cannot take decisions, they cannot own shares legally until they are the age of 18 and able to participate in the financial markets. So the shares will be held in trust as part of the programme. And that's really important because I recognise that there are probably some misconceptions or perhaps some confusion around, well, you know, if you're giving me the $1,000 and $500 is in the cash savings account and I've got $500 in shares, well, if something comes up and I need to get access to that on behalf of my child, can I withdraw that cash? What we want to say to parents is that whilst we recognise that those things might happen, or to guardians too, things might happen, but we really want to give the young people a fighting chance of still having something at the end of the programme that they can use as a springboard to move on to what they want to achieve next. So I think that's really important to say. And so on that basis, in any event, the young people wouldn't be able to get access to the dividends, so we may as well automatically reinvest it into the fund for them and give them a better opportunity of growing their capital over the long term.
I believe there are people who would be of the opinion that for them, wealth is seeing actual money in their hand or seeing something that they could physically touch. So when you speak about investments or the dividends, what does this mean, or how significant is it for the nation's children and by extension the nation?
I'm so excited about this, Devonne, honestly, because I think, you know, parents, you know, you have this tiny baby. I'm a mom, I've got 2 daughters. You're excited for them. You want to do the best possible thing, and you're thinking, I want to set a really nice nest egg for them. I want to save some cash for them for when they go to university, if they want to buy a car, if they want to buy a house when they're adults. So you're excited. It's rare that they have an opportunity to own shares, as I say, for the reason that I've given. You know, children under the age of 18 cannot access shares.
Right.
There are similar programs in other parts of the world. The UK have got a number of different initiatives that enables parents or guardians to set up investment accounts on behalf of their children, but the children themselves cannot get access, and neither can the parents get access. That's, again, critically important. So I could set it up for my children, and I can invest and save on behalf of those children, but I cannot get access to the shares. Because what we're prioritising is this long-term benefit. And again, we have to reiterate these messages continually. Long-term is the only way. Taking a long-term view is one of the best ways to build that intergenerational wealth. That can ultimately mean that it's not just about enriching yourself as an individual, but the people within your family, the people within your community, and by virtue, the people across the Federation, people across the nation. I often repeat this mantra, which is that no child left behind. And I think, you know, when you consider social mobility and one of the key contributory factors to upward mobility, not just in the Federation of St Kitts and Nevis, but elsewhere, having solid financial foundations is a catalyst to that. Holding money in cash saving is not going to build wealth. And I think we can say that definitively. People that are thinking, I'm just going to save my money and put those deposits in, whilst we've learned from our grandmothers and our grandfathers and previous generations about the importance of deferred gratification, all of us, I'm sure, can attest to having a grandmother story. You know, Granny always had money. Granny could always dig you out of a sticky situation. She could always feed the 5,000 on a shoestring. You know, very adept, very resourceful in managing her budget. So we know the importance of having a solid cash management strategy in the home and what that does for communities. It gives confidence, it gives a sense of self-reliance and pride. But if you hold your money in cash, whether it's Granny having a jar with cash or partner hand, which I know is another thing that we might do, even holding money in the bank, the level of interest that you are going to get on those deposits over the long term is not going to outpace inflation. When we talk about inflation, for those people that are listening that are thinking, what does she mean by inflation? It's effectively your purchasing power over the long term. So what is the value of my dollars in my pocket today? If I have $100 in my pocket today, in 3 years' time, can that 100, in fact, even in a year's time,
right,
what can that $100 buy? And if you realise that what I can put in my basket is less, the reason you've got less in your basket is because of the eroding effect of inflation. It's a bit like a mouse nibbling away at a block of cheese. Your cash is the cheese and the inflation is the mouse, and it's nibbling away all the time, you don't realise it. What shares are able to do is to provide a good store of value and a hedge against inflation. And by hedge, it's like a block. So again, with children, we're trying to articulate, what do we mean by that? It's like I grew up in an era of like Thundercats and Defenders of the Earth, and they would have their shields. So if you're putting up a shield, that's your block, that's your hedge against inflation. Investing in shares provides that hedge and means that we are able to preserve the value of the cash over the long term and to grow it before inflation can nibble it away. And that's what we are trying to do for the young people of the Federation.
Thank you so much for that. Dr. Nata, you mentioned earlier the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank as one of the entities, organizations that has been backing this program. What are the other agencies or people involved in ensuring the success of this program?
Right. So, I mean, that's critical because I want the persons to know that the Prime Minister has asked that we put together this task force, and he has placed some authority in me to assist with that. But is it Socrates said, I know that I am intelligent because I know nothing. I know nothing. And it doesn't mean that I don't know anything and I'm dumb, but I know my limitations. And
yes.
I know. So I have a wonderful, wonderful team of persons, and I will just run through them very quickly. We have representation from the Ministry of Finance, and the top person in the Ministry of Finance, besides the Prime Minister, Mrs. Hilary Hazel, who is the Financial Secretary. You already met Davinia, who is a CEO, author. She's, lots of things that she's very humble and she would not say, but she's an investment expert. She knows about wealth management, and she's been very pivotal in the work that we're doing. The Ministry of Education is on board. Mr. Melvin Basso, who is the Senior Assistant Secretary and the Finance Officer there. He is a part of it. And let me just pause here to say that the Ministry of Education, in terms of the Education Curriculum Unit, has been a key part of the subcommittee that is dealing with the financial education aspect. Okay. Because the ministry itself already had somewhat of a curriculum they were working on to teach financial literacy in the schools. So instead of us, hitting heads and so on, we've tried to synergize what they're doing with what we are planning. So I just wanted to make that point. Okay. Also, representation from the cable, which is one of the entities that we want to have the shares from, with the CEO, Ms. Pat Walters, as well as the CFO, Mr. Sheldon Mitchell. They're part of the task force. Managing Director of the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank, Mr. Terence Crosman. We mentioned Sybil Welsh, who is a Senior Project Specialist at the ECCB. She is a part of the task force and leading on financial education. Mr. Peter Jenkins, representing the St. Kitts and Nevis National Cooperative League Limited. And representing the Bankers Association, Mr. Steve Farrier, who was the president at the time we started the work of the task force. He's now the immediate past president. And so he's not left us, he's staying on. But the new president, Mrs. Pamela Herbert Daniel, who is the country manager for Republic Bank, St. Kitts and Nevis, she is now incorporated into the task force. And from the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs, we always have to have a legal mind in the room, Ms. LaShawn K. Smart. She is Crown Counsel 2 in the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs. And from the Nevis Island Administration, we have Janisha Daniel. She's an audit manager with the Inland Revenue Department, who the Premier has nominated to serve on the task force with us. So we have some heavy hitters, and I'm just there, a small fish in a big pond. And I really, really want to echo the seriousness with which we have approached this work. We feel collectively that this is a dynamic and novel idea that the Prime Minister has put forward. He's a very, very visionary person, and he's a very ambitious person. So he always asks me what's happening with the task force and so on. So I wanted to come to the public today as well to just give an update that we have been working since December, and we have a special cadre of persons who are quite qualified to roll out this novel program for us.
I want to bring some clarification to some misunderstanding or misconception that the public had in terms of this program and the access to funds. So let's say you are a 7-year-old and you have been enrolled in this program. You now reach the age of 18. What happens after that? Let's clarify that.
Sure. I will try. I don't know if I can fully clarify it because within our task force we have a subcommittee which we call the process subcommittee.
Okay.
That committee is looking at how do you enter the program, how do you matriculate through the program, and what does your exit from the program look like.
Okay.
Okay. So we are still fleshing that somewhat out. But as I was saying to you, we one aspect that we know for sure is that we're going to have some tiered time frames for persons. Like I said, the older teenagers, we will not have them on the program for such a long time. What we are looking at right now is a minimum of at least 10 years. And I use 10 years with an asterisk. Again, if you're 17, we're not going to keep it there till you're 27.
Right.
But we would really like a minimum of 10 years. So those persons maybe from 5 to 8, that age group would have at least a minimum of 10 years on the program. And what we are saying is, in terms of the exit from the program, at that time, the recipients, the young person would be able to make that decision on their own. And because, as Davina was saying, everything will be held in trust. So at that time, at that age, 18 or older, they will be able to make that decision. What do they want to do? Our goal is to have various options for them to make a decision. And the fact is, if the program is successful, which we intend it to be, then those persons we feel will make an appropriate decision for them at that time, whether, as I said, they decide they're going to take it and spend it all. But we really think 99% of them will be so financially educated and empowered that they would seek to reinvest it somehow, take some portion of it and reinvest, take another portion and have fun if they want, hey, right? But be educated enough to not blow it all, so to speak, and do some sort of investment or use it for something else positive to help it grow.
Thank you so much.
But we're going to definitely roll out a full process for the public to understand how you get into the program, matriculate through it, and then what options there are for you to exit the program.
Thank you so much for that. It is 11:38. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to continue the conversation and open the phone lines to allow callers to ask their questions. You can do so by calling us at 465-2555 or 718-577-2916. Let's take this break, and we will be right back.
ZIZ Radio, entertaining the nation, enjoyed by the world.
Devonne the Promoter and SKN Carnival Sugar Mass 53 presents.
Listen.
St. Kitts and Nevis 2024 Carnival Comedy Show. Performing live. Major High. Also featuring Vegas and Morris. Location. Carnival Village. December 7th, 2024. A night full of laughter. Showtime 8 p.m. Early bird special ends September 1st. Tickets on sale now at Jad Cash and online at eventbrite.com. Contact Devonne the Promoter for more info. Email delvinnf12@gmail.com.
Join us every Wednesday for In Focus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. In Focus, your government, your business.
Every Saturday from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., ZIZ Radio goes into overdrive with the Magic Fingers Ronnie Rascal Mega Mix Show. You heard? Up your dial to 96.1 FM. It's the show that brings the vibes to your Saturday afternoon lime, bar hopping, party hangouts, or just driving around. You don't want to miss the Saturday Mega Mix Show. You don't want to miss the Saturday Mega Mix Show. It's hits, old school and new school remixes by yours truly, Magic Fingers, Ronnie Rascal, every Saturday from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. ZIZ Radio.
In the house.
Welcome back to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio, 96.1 FM. I am Devonne Cornelius, and in studio with me today is Dr. Marcus Natter, Cabinet Secretary and Chair of the Financial Education and Savings Program Task Force, and other member is Devonne Tomlinson, an investment management expert and CEO of Rosewood Advisory Services. And the conversation has been centered around the Financial Education and Savings Program in terms of the key features and benefits of the program. We do want to take some calls to hear from you, your questions that you want to pose to Dr. Natter or Devonne. And as I mentioned earlier, I am quite confident that they will be able to answer those questions. But we've been able to touch on the dividend reinvestment, savings accounts for the children, and the financial education program. While we await some callers, I want to go back to the financial education program, Dr. Natter, where you mentioned the support that the task force has been receiving from the Ministry of Education with regards to the curriculum development unit.
Yes.
And something like, okay, you mentioned that there was something that they had in place and you were looking to see how that unit could work on what they had and what you guys are proposing to build out the financial education program. Is there, I'm not sure if I missed it, but is there a start date for that program to begin?
Right.
Specifically?
Right. I mean, ideally, we would really like to roll it out with the upcoming school year.
Okay. Yes.
Starting in September. I can't say no if it will be from day one, because as I was saying earlier in the interview, for those who may just be joining us, one of the things we're doing is kind of testing it out with the teachers and making them comfortable with what they in turn have to impart on the students. So that's something we may take the next few months doing, and I know school will be out on summer break and so forth. So our subcommittee that's dealing with that is working closely with the Ministry of Education. There's somebody from the Ministry of Education on our task force and on that subcommittee, as well as we've pulled in the head of the education curriculum unit, curriculum development unit, to be a part of that subcommittee as well. So I think, I mean, the goal is to start rolling it out in at the start of the new academic year in September, but I don't have an exact date as yet on that.
And we mentioned about the parents earlier. How would they form part of the education process? Would they be a part of the education process, or would it be just specifically for the children?
Yes, definitely. And I'm going to make sure I get Sybil to come sit with us when we hit the radio again too, because she's very keen on this and would have a lot of the specifics. But definitely the whole point is to incorporate the parents as well, and so there are avenues for doing that. Clearly won't be within the school setting, but there's some avenues to deal with that. And from what I've seen from the curriculum as well, it is well tailored to, I think, what Devonne was trying to say in terms of how the different age groups learn things. A lot of it I saw were very interactive, utilizing games, common games that children of certain ages know, and that sort of thing, to make the learning fun yet educational. So I think once teachers get au fait with it and comfortable with it and can pass it to the students, you'll see how that starts to be absorbed in the students, as well as doing the program for the parents and guardians, which I know would be probably after school hours, and we'll see how that works as well.
All right. It's 11:45. We are taking your calls at 465-2555 or 718-577-2916. We're also live on ZIZ TV and social media platforms. You can check us out on the YouTube channel or Facebook page. I had a question as you were giving your response, Dr. Natta. We're talking about money and the dividend investment and all these things, funding. How will this program come to fruition? Where will the funding come from to get the money into the various accounts and the dividend investments and what have you?
Well, the short answer is the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, because that's what the initial thrust came from. That the Minister of Finance and Prime Minister is who announced it.
Right.
And so initially, to get the program started, of course, we'll have to do some capital investment. I mean, we looked at some preliminary figures for the young citizens who would qualify across St. Kitts and Nevis, and it's in the realm of about 10,000 to 11,000 young persons. And so if you do a quick math, that's about 10 million EC dollars just to kickstart it. And of course, my good financial experts have told me the fund and so on would need about 3 years of support just until we get a management structure in place to actually manage the fund. So you can see the government having a strong input for about maybe 3 years from the start of the program. But that initial injection of funds will come from the government in some form.
Is it continuous in the sense that does the program apply to children who are now 5 to 18? Or if I get a child and when that child gets to their 5th birthday, they now qualify to join the program?
The latter. That's exactly the goal.
Okay.
The goal is for it to be a sustainable program. It's not a one-off. It is not a gimmick. You know, it's something that we want to be long-lasting. So I'm glad you're making plans to have a little one. Because on another note, the Prime Minister has been echoing, and across the region, they've been echoing the need for bolstering the population. We need people to do work and to help us advance the nation. So I'm glad you're putting your hat in the ring. Yeah, but definitely, it is not a one-off. And so those persons who have babies now and so on can look forward to that program being there when that child turns 5 to get their account and get their shares and so forth and build on that. So the whole thing is to make it sustainable. And that's why I said the government will make sure it invests at least for the first 3 years until it can probably stand on its own when you start to build on the investments from the shares, the dividends and so from the shares, and you're reinvesting and start to build the portfolio a lot more and can stand alone, so to speak. But yeah, so I mean, definitely we want to make sure it's long-standing and not a one-off thing.
We have no calls right now. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation and wrap up just before noon for our midday newscast.
Join us on ZIZ TV for Youth Lounge with Sniper, a talk show on vital topics such as tourism, entrepreneurship, education, religion, sex education, and mental health, featuring experts from St. Kitts and Nevis and the Caribbean region. Tune in live on the first and third Wednesday of every month at 8:30 p.m. on ZIZ TV.
Join us every Wednesday for In Focus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio, and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. In Focus, your government, your business.
Watch the creeper. Look out, this is it. Something new, something fresh, something exciting jump off show on ZIZ Radio with the man Chico. Yo, every Monday to Thursday, Chico will be in the house with the 3 to 6 minutes. So tell your neighbors, tell your friends about this exciting show on ZIZ Radio, the jump off show, every Monday to Thursday, 3 to 6. Don't miss it. While the others give you some, we give you more. Right here on ZIZ Radio. Watch the creep.
From the heart of ZIZ Radio comes a political talk show like no other. The Edge, with host Devonne Cornelius giving you his take on the biggest stories happening in governance today. Got something to say? Let's hear it. Give us a call at 869-465-2555, Monday to Friday from 11 a.m. to 12 noon. One solid hour of in-depth analysis of the machinery that makes our country tick. The Edge, cutting into the matters at hand.
Welcome back to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. I'm your host, Devonne Cornelius, and if you're just tuning in, we are speaking on the Financial Education and Savings Program, and joining us is Chair of the Task Force for that program, Cabinet Secretary Dr. Marcus Natta, and investment expert Davinia Tomlinson. It has been a very fruitful conversation, and I think we asked all of the questions, hence the reason why the callers are not calling in to ask the questions of their own, because the questions have been asked already. But just to wrap up the conversation before we end the program, for our midday newscast, is there anything else that you would like to share with the general public at this time?
So, maybe a few things, and I'll let Davinia jump in if I miss anything. The savings portion of it, the $500 which would go to an account in trust in National Bank, I just wanted to also announce that National Bank has committed to giving a special interest rate for that savings account. They have not indicated yet what that rate would look like.
Okay.
But I think we can appreciate that it would be better than the normal, savings rate of a regular savings account. They're going to make sure that it is a lot more attractive than that one for us. Again, trying to assist with us building that generational wealth for persons and for the young persons, and allowing their money to get a little bit extra interest compared to a regular savings account. So we want to thank the National Bank for supporting this endeavor in that way, providing a special interest rate, which we will announce once the bank shares that with us. The other thing that we want to stress as a task force is that we really want to encourage our parents and guardians to recognize and understand that we are doing this for their children, for their guardians, and to recognize that, this, as we said, the accounts can't be touched and so on. Mm-hmm. So please view it as an investment in your child's future, in your guardian's future, and not necessarily wanting to, because we can be real that the talk is out there that, this money, like some adults would like to get the money, all right, for themselves. So it is not like that. We are pleading with you to understand and support the idea that this is about supporting the younger generation, so that when they get older, that they have a good footing to start on. Some of us had a better footing than others, and we are trying, I believe, to kind of level the playing field somewhat and give all of our young citizens the opportunity to have something already there, have some financial foundation for them to build on once they hit that young adulthood stage. The Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, is very, very passionate about the empowerment of young people. He's very passionate about the empowerment of women. I think you can see in a lot of what he has done from his cabinet, from the parliament, you can see that the vision for him is to empower everyone, but especially the underserved, which always tends to be women and young people, and to build all of them up. So, you know, we're again kind of all on the same footing. What we decide to do from that footing is really up to us. But you can't build a good house without a proper foundation, right? And you can't build a proper foundation and a house without a proper and sound blueprint. And what I think this financial education and savings program is that blueprint to help you build that foundation, and then it's up to you to build that house when the time comes.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Lata. Ms. Devonne, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I loved that, what you said about the blueprint for the house. And while you were speaking, it occurred to me that when we talk about levelling the playing field and giving every child in this federation an equal opportunity, equal access to opportunity, what they then do with that opportunity, obviously, is subject to their will. But what we want is for every child in this federation to feel that they have an equal stake in the nation's wealth.
Yes.
And in a similar fashion, you know, we've already seen evidence from this government in making sure that there are no barriers in terms of access to healthcare for the nation's children. We also want a similar thing when it comes to access to good finance. We know that, you know, we don't want any child in this federation to feel that they can't, or their life outcomes are compromised by virtue of the fact that they don't have the financial means to get access to good quality healthcare. Similarly, when we think about some of the other social ills in society, you know, marginalisation of certain groups, social exclusion, and, you know, law and disorder, that, you know, some of the challenges that come as a result of feeling that you are excluded from mainstream society, you can't get access to employment, you can't get access subsequently to good finance, and what that does for the fabric of society as a whole. I think it's imperative that we stress that whilst this programme is not a panacea to everything that might be going wrong in the nation, it is a contribution to making sure that the young people of this federation feel that they have a stake, feel that this is a place that they can call home and feel proud of, and share in the wealth, that it is not confined to the preserve of people that come from a certain social strata, that everybody has an equal opportunity. And I think that's really important to say. The second thing that I just wanted to add was that when we think about the investments, and this is a preemptive response, but there might be those people listening in and saying, you know, when you talk about investments, two companies, having shares in two companies doesn't necessarily feel like a diversified portfolio. And of course what we recognise is that in this market, what we want to do is be very choosy about the kinds of companies that we back and that we acquire shares for on behalf of the nation's children. So we're adopting a very conservative approach in that respect. But what we are also seeking to do is to identify companies in future. So again, future-proofing this programme and making sure that children that are born in 2025, 2026 and beyond can also get access to a similar pool of shares, and that everybody is sharing equally in the upside as that capital grows over the long term. So whilst it's the cable and National Bank today, in future and in years to come, there might be other companies to be disclosed that we would also consider as well.
Thank you so much, Devonne. Yeah, and let me use this opportunity to say thank you guys so much for joining me in the program for today, to answering the questions and speaking about this program in terms of what it entails, what can people look forward to, and how far you are in terms of the actual rollout of the program. You've been listening to the May 15th, 2024 edition of The Edge here on ZIZ Radio. Until next time, you guys stay safe. Don't drink and drive. Don't text and drive. Have a good one. Coming up next is our midday newscast. Stay tuned.